Today I feel fancy, so I'm having a matcha latte. Hello everyone and welcome to another video of visual storytelling with Olschi. I'm Olschi and on this channel we talk about manga, comics, how to create them and just anything art related. This month I want to talk about how to start and finish your first manga project. Or maybe you already started and are struggling with finishing it. So I guess this video is for all the newbie comic artists out there, but I think some of the tips might be helpful for any kind of creative project that you need to start working on, maybe. And if the video is not helpful to you in any way, then I don't know, maybe you can still stick around for, I don't know, matcha latte slurping noises or something. I already made a video of the steps of creating a manga, and for each of those steps I also have separate videos. But this video is a little bit different. It's more about time management and how to start and finish your first project. Because if you have no experience, in the beginning this task might look pretty daunting. So here are some tips which will hopefully help you break down the whole process and just see it as a more manageable thing that you can actually do without any problems. First of all, it's probably the best if your first manga is a short manga. Do not plan a whole epic story, because you don't know what your workflow is yet. You might not know how your motivation fluctuates throughout the project. So starting with something manageable really will help you to get into it and just develop a routine. Make your first story maybe 16 pages, or maybe even 8 if 16 seems too much. Maybe you can pick a comic or manga contest in order to finish the story. And if you think you're not good enough to participate in a contest, well, I have good news for you. There is no such thing as not being good enough to participate in a contest. Most people who participate in contests lose, but this competition might give you the opportunity to create a manga within a given time frame. You can look locally or internationally. For example, one of the most famous contests is the Silent Manga Award. It is a Japanese contest, but because you're not supposed to use any speech bubbles or no text, anyone from any country can participate. I personally participated in Manga Talente back in the day when it was still running, and I did take part a couple of times before I could actually win in 2010. And of course I was a little bit sad the first few times I did not win, but it was still an amazing feeling to have had various short stories finished. I learned a lot in each one and I could see a definite progress from each year. So by starting with a short story, you already pick something that is more easily manageable. Do not make things unnecessarily difficult for yourself. Creating an epic fantasy story where you need lots of world building is just unnecessarily difficult. There is way too much work before you can even start. So a short story is definitely better for your first project than a long format story. Keep the story simple, cut out the unnecessary work. Short stories are told different than longer ones. Focus is different. So it's not necessary for you to build and plan a lot. The character's background doesn't need to be planned out from their birth to now. Nor do you need a historic timeline for the world that the story is taking place in. Do not invest too much energy in all these details, especially if you do not have enough experience with storytelling. Having too many details about the characters and the world might make it difficult to know what do you need to tell in this story and what you don't. So the more simple your story is, the easier it is to just focus on certain aspects of it. You don't need to explain everything. Some things can be left open for the reader to interpret, or just left up to the suspension of disbelief. For example, people in this world can do magic. Does the magic system need an explanation in a short story? It really doesn't, so don't create a super complicated magic system that makes the story confusing if the magic system is not explained. Again, keep it simple. Although this too is not a hard rule. If you know how to break it, sure, go for it. So see whether the story you picked as your first project does make things unnecessarily difficult for you. And if it does, maybe start with a different story and keep this one for as your second, a bit longer project. Once you decided that you're gonna do a short story, first Just write down your rough idea. What is the story about? Just sit down and write whatever comes to mind. Or you can record yourself while talking, maybe in a video format. Whatever helps you to just basically brainstorm. At this stage, no idea is a bad idea. Capture any brain fart that comes to your mind. For example, you want to create a story about a cat boy who falls in love with a dog boy. But then there's also this cute pig boy. And the whole thing should have like Arina Tanamura feeling to it. It should be funny, but also dramatic. And the soundtrack would be... You get my gist. Don't worry about any details about anything that you will have to do in the future. At this point, just let your imagination run wild. After you sit down with the rough idea, you can start planning. But you don't have to do it straight away. You can take some time off. Let the idea sink in for a couple of days maybe, and just enjoy the excitement of starting a new project. Maybe paint in the eye of a Daruma doll in the meantime. In case you don't know what a Daruma is, it is a Japanese doll. You paint in the first eye when you want to reach a goal, and then you just put it somewhere where it can stare at you all the time and remind you of what you want to do. And then once you reach the goal, then you can paint in the second eye. Not only does it help you materialize your goal in something that you can actually touch and see, but it's also just a nice decoration. You can make your own Daruma doll. But yeah, it's okay to take some time off after you write the rough sketch idea, but eventually you have to come back, sit down and start the planning. First of all, you need to break down the task in manageable chunks. If you do these tasks bit by bit, it's a little bit easier to keep a clear head and not to get overwhelmed by everything you still have to do. Here are the usual steps of when you create a manga. Like I said before, I made videos on each of those steps already. So feel free to watch those, but I would recommend you to watch each of those videos right before you start working on this one step. I will explain why in a bit. Also made a printable worksheet for you. This is just a guideline, nothing fancy. You don't really have to stick to each of these points. It's possible that you don't need storyboards or you don't need to write the script, because the whole story is in your head. I remember that when I created my first manga, I did not write down the story and I did not do any storyboards. First of all, my mind was just a lot fresher back then, but it's also possible that because I didn't have any storyboards, I didn't write the story, it's possible that the stories didn't turn out as effective as they could have been. I don't know. So you have to figure out what works best for you. The link for the download of the sheet is in the description box. To further help you with planning, you can try out journaling. For example, let's say in February you want to finish sketching the pages. So you set it as a monthly goal. If your story is 16 pages, then you need to sketch 4 pages each week. Then when you plan your week, you can decide on which day how many pages you want to sketch. This way, each day you only have to think about the task you have to do on this certain day, and you don't have to think about, oh my gosh, 15 more pages to go. You just think, okay, today it's 1 page. So you only have to concentrate on that one task and not on a million things that you still have to do in the future. And when you manage to reach each of those small goals, let's say for that 1 week, you manage to sketch the 4 pages, you reward yourself. Maybe you can buy a pen you wanted to have for a while, or you can play a game. You earned it. Also try to work in an environment that works for you. If it's the couch, it's a couch. If it's at a cafe with friends, then try doing that. When I was at uni, my friends could work best in the library, but I couldn't do it at all. It was just too quiet for me. But working with my friends at the cafe didn't work either. At least not when I had to be really concentrated. For me, working at home worked best. So what is the place that works best for you? Although I know during the pandemic it's a little bit difficult to work outside of your home. Knowing what kind of environment works for you also includes knowing what does not work for you. If having your phone close by constantly distracts you, just throw your phone out the window. Or put it somewhere else where it doesn't distract you. And it's not only important where you work, it's also important when you work. Dedicate time slots to when you work on your project. You can maybe start with like 1 hour a day, or maybe on a Saturday you work 3 hours and on a Sunday another 2 hours. If you're a night owl, then dedicate the late hours to work on your project. Think about when can you concentrate the best. Next tip. Don't necessarily wait until you have the right skill or the right tools. Try to work with what you have at hand. But of course, at the planning stage, you can already plan for certain things to learn before you tackle each of the steps. For example, if you don't know how to apply screen tones digitally, then look up some tutorials on that. Oh, and what a coincidence! I already made a video on applying screen tones digitally. How handy! But also don't overdo it. If you feel like you're not ready because you don't know how to draw anatomy, you can practice it a little bit, but in a way you will actually never be ready to start a project, because in order to have certain skills for drawing manga, you have to have drawn some manga. You can always be better than you are presently, but you become better by doing the actual thing. If you don't have the right material, don't let it stop you either. Let's say you can't afford to buy everything at once. Decide what do you really need and what can wait. Manga can be created with anything, as there is no clear definition of what manga is. If a pencil and eraser is all you have, then see how can you create manga with just those tools. My first manga were just pencil and paper. Might even have been checkered paper, I'm not sure. Looking at professionals sometimes can give you the impression that in order to create manga you need all these tools. You can only create manga if you have the right software, if you have the right paper, ink, and so on. But having those material limits might actually challenge you creatively and train your problem-solving skills. Don't let things like material stop you from doing what you really want to do. And yes, things are easier if you do have the right tools. But your biggest tool is your skill anyways. So train that while you are saving money to buy those tools you need. Accountability is another important aspect of when you create your first manga. If being accountable only to yourself doesn't push you hard enough to actually finish, maybe try finding a friend. Just try finding a friend. Okay, no, what I mean is find a friend, a person or a group whom you can tell about your goal, and now they can hold you accountable and keep asking you, so how far along are you with your manga? You can also announce those things online, which is an even higher accountability. But be a little bit careful about it, like if you don't reach your goal and because you announce it online you feel like a total failure, you might be punishing yourself unnecessarily, because feeling like a failure actually prevents you from doing things, doesn't push you forward. So maybe telling only a friend or a family member is better. So no need to expose yourself to your own scrutiny. Because let's be honest, you are probably the person who is harder on yourself than the people that you know. But if you decide to announce your goal to an audience, you might try to combine it with social media, for example. You can stream your process. If you work on your manga, stream it on YouTube or on Twitch or Instagram. You can post regular updates. This way you just have accountability to keep showing your progress. When you work on your project, sometimes there will be days when you do not feel motivated to work on it. So on those days you kind of have to find motivation. How can you hype yourself up for this project? Again, I did a whole video on this topic, but the more videos I mentioned in this video, the more I feel like I'm telling you to just spend time on YouTube and not work on your thing. So I don't know, watch it, don't watch it. I'm not your mom. And last but not least, and probably the most important point, put aside perfectionism. Just accept that your first project will not be perfect. There will be mistakes, and that's okay. Fear of failure can paralyze us. But failing is part of human experience, I guess. It's part of the learning process. There is nothing more satisfying to me than flipping through a story that I finished. I made this. First, there was nothing, then there was idea, and now there is a whole story. So I hope you can experience a similar feeling. Maybe you already experienced it. How does it feel to you to finish a creative project? Like I said, it doesn't have to be a manga. Do you have any other tips that I have not mentioned in this video? Was this video helpful at all? Or were the slurping noises not enough? Please leave a comment. You can also follow me on my social media like Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. And I would like it if you liked this video and subscribed to my channel if you haven't already. I upload a video a month. Thank you for watching this video. I wish you good luck with any kind of project that you're tackling this year. And I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.